Hello and welcome to Make the Logo Bigger. My name is Brenton. This podcast is your gateway into the world of advertising production, crafted especially for those who are stepping in new, aiming to become producers, or simply eager to understand the inner workings of advertising and marketing. We're here to share insights and knowledge you've been looking for, with stories, tips, and real conversations from the pros. We're simplifying the process for everyone with a production curiosity. Whether you're just starting out or keen to explore the production side of ads, you've found the right place. Let's jump in. Our guest today is Maria Efthymiopoulos, a seasoned casting director with over 2 decades of experience. From founding her own casting agencies to mastering the art of digital auditions, Maria has navigated the evolving landscape in both traditional and modern contexts. Maria shares her insights into how the casting process has transformed, the importance of maintaining strong relationships with agents, and the complexities of contractual negotiations. Join us as we uncover the behind-the-scenes dynamics of casting from one of the industry's respected professionals. Whether you're a new agency producer, director, or simply fascinated by the casting world, this conversation with Maria promises to deepen your understanding and appreciation of this crucial aspect of storytelling. Maria Efthymiopoulos. Maria, thanks for jumping on. Appreciate you taking the time out. To get into it straight away, do you want to give us a bit of a background about who you are and what you do?
Oh, God. Okay. So I'm a casting director. I've been a casting director for over 20 years. My first foray into casting, I actually started and ran Chameleon Casting for 7 years and sold that, went overseas for a couple of years and then came back and started Two Divas, which I ran for about 15 years with my lovely partner Zoe May. And now I'm a little freelance Brisbane casting up here.
So what does a casting agent do?
Okay, so we are employed by either production companies, advertising agencies, well, especially in the advertising field, to find the best person for the job. So we are impartial. We're paid to be impartial. So we don't take a cut of the actor's fees. We get paid a fee to do whatever we have to do to find that person. And sometimes it's a straightforward process in that we brief the agents, they put people forward, we pick people from who they put people forward. Other times it's doing research, stalking people on Insta. Recently I had to find like a longboard skater and I ended up it was really quite a grueling process, but you're literally stalking people on Instagram and we ended up finding a girl out of Germany that we flew out here because they had to have extraordinary skills. And I guess the other thing that really is a very important thing when you're in casting is being an observer and liking people because it's endless interactions, especially when we were having people into studio auditioning people. I could be auditioning sometimes, especially for an ad, like a quick ad, like a Coles ad or something. You'd have them in and out every 5 minutes. So you could be auditioning 70, 80 people a day, which is a drama.
What's casting look like in 2024?
It's so different. I mean, look, you still audition people for certain jobs where, you like the old days where you used to have your studio and people would come in and you give them in direction and then you send off the link to the director. But since COVID, the unimaginable for me has happened, which is that I can be sitting in my apartment and auditioning someone in their home. I could be, sitting on a Greek island. I was so office bound before. Like we were in studio. I could never have imagined being able to do my job from anywhere other than in studio. And so it is very different now. Directors we used to turn up all the time. So it was a thing, we'd have directors. Sometimes they'd sit there for days while we were auditioning. I mean, that was rare. For callbacks, they would nearly always turn up. Like 90% of the time, basically, the director would be in a room for a callback, which is ideal because you want your director in the room for a callback. This is when we really rely on them to kind of, take the actor to wherever their vision is. Otherwise, it's just up to us to interpret their vision, which is, it's a responsibility because let's face it, there's usually a million different ways you can interpret any performance and take it, you know, especially if you've got, you know, really good actors in the room. But yeah, so a lot of it happens virtually now, either via Zoom, which, you know, I'm still directing them, but, you know, obviously via a screen, which is, again, such a surreal experience, and very, very different to what used to happen before. And the other thing that happens is there's now a lot of self-tapes. So what that means is that I'm putting out the brief, I'm selecting the people, and then I'm also sending them instructions, which is not ideal, because, you know, the thing about casting is that every single person that comes into that room, my role is to get what I want out of them. And that means trying different things. You know, someone might be not hearing what you're saying, whatever words you're using, whether it's, you know, trying different language. I mean, I like to not have to show people what to do because that isn't ideal, but, you know, you can actually show them. It's so different when you're just sending off instructions and you're relying on people to interpret that and, you know, send something back. It's literally a can of worms. You don't know what you're going to get. When you're putting it out there for self-tests, you really don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes it's the quality of the self-test. Sometimes it's just the direction and the lack of, you know, just not quite getting it. Sometimes they'll just send me one take and it's just not quite enough. So often when I'm doing self-tests, I will request a lot more self-tapes and then I'm culling them. It's a whole different process.
Can I ask you, on average, what would you say per talent, how much time would you put into them?
I would actually say it's probably about 5 to 6 hours per person, because it's the pre-stuff. And then even once they're sort of shortlisted or, you know, confirmed, then you've got all the post stuff, which can be toing and froing about hair, about wardrobe, deal memos, you know, getting call times to them. So there actually is so much toing and froing that goes on beyond just the straightforward, okay, we've seen them, we've booked them, they go to set. It's just never like that, unfortunately. And look, if it's just one role, and then, I mean, if you're doing callbacks as well, look, it can actually be, you know, longer than 6 hours. I'd say probably 6 to 8 hours at least per role, because if you're factoring in callbacks.
Why would somebody choose to use a casting director over just doing it themselves these days?
Well, I guess, you know, I think a lot of people are very daunted by the casting process. So this is where my expertise hopefully comes in, because my job is to know these actors, to know what they're capable of, to know what their skills are, to know what their voice sounds like, you know, because obviously it's all very well looking at a picture. Most actors do not look like their photos. So, you know, I also knew what they looked like, what work they'd been doing to develop themselves. There was a lot less guesswork. If all you're doing is picking, you know, from photos, like I said, anyone can do that. But I don't know, what you're going to get is a whole, it could be anything. And the other thing that I think is one of the really key factors in casting is the relationships you build with the agents. Because if you could put out a brief, and especially, I mean, and if it's got really good money, then you will get a response from the agents. But if agents get a brief from someone they don't know and the money is not great, there's a good chance you're going to get because you're then relying on them to submit the best people for the job, right? If they don't know you and the money's not good, you may get some submissions. You may get like submissions of people that they've just taken on who've done nothing, that, you know what I mean? So the agents are a massive, massive part of the casting director relationship and process, because like we are relying on them a lot of the time to assist us in this process, especially, you know, when I came to Brisbane and I'm new, but the agents know me because they knew me from Melbourne. So, you know, I'm putting out briefs. And so, you know, they're submitting, you know, they're good people because they know that they're going to be treated respectfully, that it's a legit job, that it's not just some, you know, dodgy person that's put out a job, because this is another responsibility of their agents, is to make sure that whatever they're putting them forward for is a legitimate job with a legitimate, you know, casting person, because there are all sorts of things that go on in this industry and they're the gatekeeper and the protector of their actors. So, and, you know, often, these relationships are what save our bacon. You know, if something happens at the last minute, if something falls over or something changes, and you know, trying to get agents to contact you to speak to you after hours, or you know, so these relationships are critical to the casting process.
Let's talk about the casting process. What critical details should be included in a casting brief when tasked with the casting process?
Everything. Basically, the release. So what media you are buying, which is all tied up with the fee they're being paid, how long they're required to work on the day, whether there's additional stills, anything like that. Obviously, shoot dates are critical because, you know, and this is another really important part of what I do, is to make sure that whoever I'm putting forward is available, because the last thing you want is your client to fall in love with someone and for some reason, you know, they haven't paid attention to the shoot date, or they just want to put themselves forward. They want to be seen by the casting director anyway. And so they're actually not available. It happens a lot where like people would come in and they're like, not available. I'm like, oh, well, you've literally just wasted my time, your time, and, you know, somebody else could be here that was available. So don't think that, you know, turning up is like you're going to get a tint for that. Obviously qualities as well, like, you know, if there's an accent or a physical attribute or a skill, criminal background sometimes, you know, police checks. There's honestly an endless amount of privacy invasion that we are privy to.
Maria, your training, where did you learn? Who did you learn from?
Very good question, Brenton, because when I was given my first job in casting, the only thing I had done, I had worked as an agent for an agency in Sydney. That's when I kind of learned, because I'd studied film and television. I'd done a Bachelor of Arts in Communications at the University of Technology in Sydney, and casting was not mentioned once. So I didn't even know it was kind of a thing, really. When I got my first job as a casting director, that was my only real experience. So I had no idea how to be a casting director, but I did take myself off. I did acting classes and I did some directing classes, because I thought, first of all, I need to be able to communicate with actors in the room. I don't want to be intimidated by this process, because a lot of people are. And I find that even with a lot of directors who've come from more technical backgrounds. So it was great doing the acting classes, because I learned about how to communicate with actors. And literally all you have to do is talk to actors. I mean, it's not like you need any special language, but you do have to have some language, I guess, in terms of being able to kind of get them on their marks, make sure they're looking in the right direction, and also be able to monitor their level of performance. So that was great, because I felt a lot more confident in studio, and you know, then it became fun rather than, you know, intimidating or scary. But the other part of it was all learning about the contract side of it and the release, you know, all that stuff, because that is such a big can of worms, and I had no one to teach me that. So basically I went back to bare bones. I went through to the MEAA. I read every single award they had. I read the back of contracts, and I would talk to agents, and that's basically that was kind of how I learnt about the other side of it. Now you've also got, you've got the MEAA, which has got the awards, and now you have the CGA, the Casting Guild of Australia as well, and they have guidelines as well, which are not fully aligned, I must say, with the MEAA guidelines. They're both quite different in terms of levels of pay and stuff like that. And it is really a pity that the MEA, that they haven't kind of aligned, because even for me, sometimes it's confusing.
Give us an idea of what usage is and where it fits into the contract for a talent.
So the usage is basically the key part of the deal. So when we are working out a fee for the actor or negotiating, for a particular actor, it is directly related to the size of the release that we are purchasing. So if you're just purchasing, 12 months online, they're going to be paid a lot less than if you're purchasing TV, stills, cinema, bus sides. I mean, and I have to say, as the years go, because when I first started, there was TV, there was billboards, there was print, newspapers, magazines, point of sale, very standard. None of it was digital. Every single thing that they want has to be on the contract. So you can't negotiate for 12 months TV and then all of a sudden it's on, the baggage claim at the airport. This is a really big part of the contracting process. I mean, sometimes obviously you contract it and things happen, they change. So there might be additional release added in. And this is where these guidelines, especially the CGA guidelines, come into play now, because before we used to have to fight it out with the agents, because there was no really strict guidelines except for, like, say, TV. Cinema was 50% of TV. Billboards were 50% of TV. So the CGA guidelines are fantastic from that angle. And for producers, ad agencies that want to add on release, I mean, I think it has really cut out, because there was a lot of arguing. The agent's going to go for as much money as they can after the event. So whatever's not on the contract that comes into play after was potentially a battle. Hopefully, I think now, because, things are going to change. I mean, if you've got a campaign that's really successful, then they're going to want to potentially buy more release. So, yeah, the guidelines have allowed them to now be able to do that without it being a battle. Because every time something would change back in the day, it was always a battle with the agents, because they're representing their actor. They want to get the best money for their actor, and I'm representing my client. So I want to get the best thing from the for my client. I don't want to rip off the actor though. So you want it to kind of be fair, but some agents would get it and others would just be like for the jugular.
So can I ask you about the CGA? Basically, they've been able to quantify all the different usages. Is that right? Have they been able to break it down into the percentage of what the fee should be?
Yes. Overall, yeah. Again, it's never like a signed off science, because everything's just a little bit different. But the guidelines are there now, which definitely make it so much easier.
Give me like a ballpark fee for a hero talent. A hero talent role, speaking, is national, 12 months, cinema, TVC, all online, stills, and that covers everything, billboard, point of sale, PR awards, client channels. Let's say it's just everything.
Now, again, it's never a straightforward answer, right? Because what it comes down to at that level is the caliber of the talent. Mm-hmm. So if you need like a top-notch actor, because sometimes you can not need a top-notch actor to still, have someone carry an ad that, if it's more of a presenting role or a sort of more straightforward kind of acting role, I guess you'd be probably looking at sort of between $10,000 to $12,000. But if you're looking for a top-notch actor, and I'm not talking about a name actor, I'm just saying, then you could be looking at, from 15 to 30, could even be more than that. It also then, the other thing that comes into play is the product, the type of product. So if it's an alcohol and gambling pay top dollar, banking, cars, they are all, in a similar area, and then everything else is kind of a bit below that. So there is really a kind of an unspoken kind of hierarchy in terms of how we determine these fees. And look, unfortunately, there's no formula for that. That's just my experience of having done it for a long time. And even then, it's always a little bit nerve-wracking, the quoting process, because, I know what they should be getting paid, but I'm also fully aware that budgets are not what they used to be. So you're trying to kind of get a feel for, wanting to get the job in and, and not wanting to rip people off, but also, not putting in, a lot of the time they're probably fees that they potentially should be getting. Look, let me tell you, when I started in advertising like 20 odd years ago, actors were getting $6,000 for just 12-month national TV campaign. Mm-hmm. Now, they're lucky to get that now, and that wouldn't just be for TV. There'd be a lot of other media bundled in for that $6,000. Again, I mean, if it's a top-notch actor, then no, but they'd be wanting more. But yeah, it's definitely, I feel like they have gone backwards in terms of their pay since I've started, which is not ideal.
Talent. Give me a rundown of what the different type of talent are.
So if I would say hero, 100% means that there's one person, they're the main person in the ad and they're talking. So 100% means they're talking, which is a weird, I don't even understand where that phrase came from. Then there's featured talent, and that can range from like a brief feature to, featured throughout the whole, spot.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's what I would call like a brief visual, which is basically an extra that you can recognize. But in advertising, an extra must be unrecognizable. Otherwise, they need to be paid for the use of their image.
Okay. So what about street casting? It's something that's come up, I hear more and more. What does street casting mean to you?
Well, what it means these days is very different from what it used to mean. Because back in the day, street casting meant almost like you'd go and stand in the street and approach people, unless you were doing specific like research for through sporting groups or, looking for a particular skill set. Now, what street casting means to me is social media, and it's amazing what I can find through my social media reach and, getting on different, and sometimes I'll put it out there through my Facebook and through my Insta. If you're not getting much of a response, then I'm literally on the comms searching Facebook groups. Facebook groups are an amazing source of, when I first got to Brisbane, I had to find open water swimmers. So I just, got on every Facebook group I could find based up here. And mate, I found the most amazing people. And same recently, I was having to cast some oldies for a stills campaign, and they'd kind of already been through everyone that was with agents. So I posted it even on my gym group going, so I will post everywhere. It's like recently when I did that job through you where I was having to find people in Cairns, and so literally I'm on every Cairns group, people wanting work, people arriving in Cairns, whatever it is.
Does street casting mean that it's cheaper, or you get the talent cheaper?
Potentially, yes. But obviously it has to be appropriate for the level of skill required. So, my longboard rider, she didn't need to be an actor. She just needed to be a great longboarder. Sometimes you are like just looking for stuff where people just need a good personality, like good energy. So that kind of thing, street casting, absolutely. Beyond that, I mean, you wouldn't be street casting for actors necessarily in that way.
Tell me, Maria, what is a deal memo?
Okay, so a deal memo is a summary of what I have negotiated with the actor and the agent that then is a summary of my deal that then gets put into a contract. So it's not a legal document, but it's like the handshake document. Okay, we've done the deal. You're meant to sign a deal memo, the agent is, but really that's almost irrelevant because if I can't trust them, then it doesn't matter whether you've signed or not. I mean, the relationship is broken. So basically it is a summary. And then from there, the contract is drawn up by the employer. So usually the ad agency is technically the employer, or someone like Talent Play. And that is the legal document. That is based on the paperwork that I've done.
Are there any current day challenges casting agents face in 2024?
I would say the biggest challenge is diversity. For younger actors, I wouldn't say it's much of a challenge because, there is a lot in Australia. We have so many younger people of all different origins, ethnicities, physical skill levels, disabilities that are available. So when I'm looking for older, diverse actors, anyone 60 plus, it is a massive challenge because they hardly exist in Australia.
Your advice is the more specific you can be upfront in the casting process, the easier it is and the less faffing around at the back end it'll take.
Absolutely. And then you will get the best possible people that are available for the job in that brief. Whereas if I'm trying to do it later, I'm scrambling, I've missed suggestions or agents haven't put people forward. Like it just gets a lot harder to feel like, oh yeah, I've got absolutely the best possible people for this. And also you've got a lot less time, it's getting closer to the shoot. So it's more of a scramble.
Maria, thank you so much for today. Really invaluable insight. Appreciate you jumping on, and I'm sure that there will be people out there that get a lot out of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brenton. Good on you, mate.
I'll be in touch. I'll let you get into your casting. Hey, how do you say your last name?
Efthymiopoulos.
Do you know what? Efthymiopoulos. Forgive me. I will come back to you on that, but I might get a phonetic spelling. That might help me. That might
It
be
is.
better.
It's phonetic. Efthymiopoulos.
Well, that's it for today. I'll make the logo bigger. Thanks for hanging out with us. We've shared some insights and stories that I hope you found useful. Whether you're just getting started or diving deeper into ad production, there's always more to explore. Keep listening, stay curious, and we'll be back soon with some more from the world of production. Take care until then.